Morning, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today for this quarter's Stump the Chump. Today, we're talking about the 2 comma lifestyle. So we'll kind of give everybody a little bit of a few minutes here to join and get settled in, and then we'll really start diving in.
Yeah, for sure. And while we're doing that, Katie and I would just kind of chat a little bit. So we were just talking a little bit, Katie, so you're getting ready to sell the lake house. And
we are. We close on selling our lake house in the next few weeks here. So that is Alex and I both think simplifying our life sounds very good right now.
Yeah, for sure.
One house and yard to maintain.
Yeah.
As our second baby comes in the next month. So simplifying in one area and totally not simplifying it in the other.
Yeah. Well, I know for us, when we think about that 2 comma lifestyle, I think you and Alex were living it there for a while. From the outside, right? Lake house, current house, but then really you kind of started realizing maybe this isn't the lifestyle that we want.
The ideal lifestyle, yeah. Being busy and with work, it's like, what do you want your life to be made up of? Is it work and maintenance, or is it just being together simplifying? So
for sure. Yeah. So congratulations. Hopefully it goes through. Fingers crossed.
Yes, fingers crossed. Yeah. We survived. There was a major rainstorm down there, and our basement was totally fine. We didn't have concerns, but when you're in this home stretch, it's like, please let's make this.
Well, talk about nothing in the basement. Is that the time for us to kind of talk about when you and I had our big brother, little sister, kind of I'll help you out type of a thing? And when you and Alex were talking about it. What happens if you get water in the basement and stuff. And so we'll just check your sump pump, and put you guys on a wild goose chase to find out that there is no sump pump.
We didn't have a sump pump. I was like, okay, we'll just get an extra sump pump just in case it goes out. Yeah. We got Alex and I bought all this stuff. We get there. Alex is like, where it is. Like, Step 1, see if you have a sump pump.
I was like, yep, you're welcome, Katie. Taking care of you. So well, so as everybody joins, we were calling this the 2 comma lifestyle kind of podcast or webinar. Give us some background, Katie. What's your definition of 2 comma lifestyle?
Sure. So 2 comma lifestyle to me, my immediate thought when I hear that is kind of, I have millies, baby, like exciting.
Make it rain.
Yeah, exactly. We're millionaires. But then as you more kind of sit with it and digest on it, it's not just, we have excess money, or we have, what people would say is like a great nest egg, or, but it's also, okay, well, what does that mean? Does that mean confidence? Does it mean stability? Does it mean I can be more philanthropic? Does it mean I have some safety? What does that all kind of look like? So I think that's kind of what the life part of the 2 comma lifestyle is.
Oh, like, for sure. Well, and I think too, that as you kind of process that, and as we've seen with some of our clients, it really has, that's fun.
Technical difficulty. Sorry.
That really is, has less to do about money and more about, to the point that you're talking about, what is the lifestyle and what does that mean? Because we have plenty of clients that come in that you would not think of as 2 comma, people that worked maybe as carpenters or in factory jobs and that kind of stuff, but we're very diligent with their money. And as they come in, they have wealth, but they also, beyond the wealth, they have contentment, and they're really living the lifestyle of that kind of that 2 comma life that we think about.
Tim, before we dive in too much, do you want to talk about the Q&A portion and what we should?
Yeah, great call. So on your Zoom page, if you want, you can look at the bottom. There's a section that says Q&A, and you can type questions in there. If you click on it, type questions, it'll pop up on our screen, and we'll be able to answer those. Even if you want to chat, if for some reason Q&A isn't working for you, click on the chat and we can do it that way too.
So as we're going through this, feel free to pop questions in that Q&A, and then we'll answer them kind of at the end, probably for the Stump the Chump portion.
Yeah. And so let's talk a little bit about that too, right? What is Stump the Chump? And it's all around me being the chump always. And if you have questions, doesn't have to be on this topic, can be on any financial topic. Feel free to type those in. Be more than happy to answer those and try to stump me. So Yeah. And so as we talk about that, we had somebody one time say, and, to me, I hear too common, I think, more money, more problems, which can be part of that conversation as well. Right. And so it's all about, from our perspective, our point of view starts to become, what does it look like to have a 2-comma life? How do you define that? What are some characteristics of that lifestyle? What do people want out of that lifestyle? What don't they want out of that lifestyle? And then what are the steps that they can take to get the most out of it that they possibly can?
And just because you drive nice cars and have a nice house doesn't necessarily mean you have the 2-comma lifestyle.
That's right.
Like it goes farther than that. And
and really a lot of times we see that family or that person is actually the antithesis of the 2-comma lifestyle, because those things are burdensome to them. They're stressors to them. They are, causing them.
Now they have to keep up with paying for those things.
Absolutely.
Rather than.
Yeah. And a lot of times I think about it, really coming from a place of living from abundance rather than scarcity.
Mm-hmm.
And so many times we see people, and it's the whole spectrum. We see people that don't make a lot of money that are living in abundance, and we see people that make tons of money that are living in scarcity. And it's really, as we start to hone in on what is the 2-comma lifestyle, it really has to do with living from a place of abundance and having the ability to do the things that you want in the way that you want to. It might be, hey, if you want to, what do they say? Be a baller. Right? You can do that if you want to. I don't know how many financial webinars use be a baller. Yeah, in there.
Well, maybe in like 2008 there was more.
Yeah. How about it? But whatever that looks like, maybe that's your desire. But really, what we find is there's an old song that talks about it. I think it's by Alanis Morissette. It says, being happy isn't getting what you want, it's wanting what you've got.
Mm-hmm.
And so really that starts to talk to the heart of what is that 2-comma lifestyle,
and intentionally designing it and living it. So it's designing, what do you want that 2-comma lifestyle to look like? And using those funds or whatever that all plays out to be, so that you can intentionally use that
100%.
to get there. So I know we've talked about this 2-comma lifestyle and single digit millionaires, and we have some kind of avatars in mind.
For sure.
When we think about what does 2-comma lifestyle mean?
Well, and it's funny you bring up that single digit millionaire too, because I think that both of those phrases, they can be interchangeable. They're not necessarily. I think they have some slightly different meanings. I think when you talk about being a single digit millionaire, that is really about the money side of things, right? It's really about how did I accumulate millions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
But the 2-comma lifestyle is kind of a step further and say, what does that lifestyle really look like? And when we talk about those avatars, I think it's easy for us to focus on both of those distinctions. So the 2-comma part is all about the person, and it really has very little to do with money. It's the person who is living intentionally with their money. Many times what we find, it's people that are in middle management potentially, or not necessarily high executives, but they've been diligent with, I save consistently in my 401k. Maybe at work, I have a stock option plan that I can participate in. We've made wise decisions and have lived within our means. However, we've also set some goals and are living to try to achieve those goals. When we talk about the goals, it's all around being intentional with their lifestyle. And that's really one of the kind of pieces to that avatar. When we add in that single digit millionaire, that's when we get really specific, right? And say, how do people become these single digit millionaires? And, one of those avatars is what I started to describe. It's that middle manager. Maybe it's an executive. It's somebody that has the option to buy stock in their company. Maybe it's an employee stock ownership type of a program, or they have options as part of their compensation package, and they don't think of themselves as a millionaire, but all of a sudden they look up and they're like, hey, I've been doing this for 20 or 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
And
things are starting to come together.
Yeah, I'm really there now because I was able to do that. But we also have the avatar of the person that is kind of up and coming, the person that says, I aspire to be that single digit millionaire, and I'm doing the things now that'll allow me to get there, like saving in my 401k, even though I'm in my 30s, like buying stock in my company, even though I'm in my 30s, and looking for that kind of lifestyle too.
I think once you start thinking about it in terms of real people, and these are what they're doing currently or what they did do, and you start thinking about your own self, and you're like, hey, I've been doing a lot of those things too, or, oh, I've only been doing 2 out of the 3 of those things. Maybe I should be considering this other third option or something. I think that starts opening people's eyes a little bit.
Well, and I think it's really funny too, interesting that even as people get into that space, they don't think of themselves in that way, and they don't realize, oh, that's me. But by the time I add up the value of my house, the value of my 401k, my savings accounts, maybe I have a lake house, all of a sudden you're like, oh, that adds up pretty quick. And maybe I'm there.
And maybe that means I could be making different decisions, like going on more vacations, being more philanthropic, or just saying, oh, maybe I don't need to work for 10 more years. Maybe I can be done in 5 and really change the rest of the course of
the trajectory of my life. Yeah. And it's funny because that's one of the conversations we have most commonly with clients is when they start getting into retirement, people go through these phases leading up to retirement. In the first couple of years in retirement, money's extremely scarce in their minds. You know, it always has been. You know, kids always needed shoes or baseball practice or whatever it is, right? There was always demands on money. And so I always felt like it was a scarce resource, and I was always worried, am I going to have enough? As I transition into retirement, I start to feel like everything I've got is all I'm ever gonna have because I quit working now. So I kind of protect it. And again, that goes back to that abundance versus scarcity kind of mindset. And so all of a sudden I'm feeling scarce, so I hold on to it. But there typically comes a point in time when we can say, you have enough, you have more than you might need. So let's take off the barriers that used to conform your thinking, and maybe there are things here that you can do that you never thought were possible, like
hang on loosely.
That's right. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and don't let go. And really what ends up happening is now you can start thinking about, what does it look like if we took our entire family to a vacation, or what does it look like if we sponsored a family that's in Habitat for Humanity and helped them build a house? What's it look like if we spent some of our time traveling to do service work? And maybe that's even international service work. I never thought that was possible before, but now I'm in that place.
And it could even be, maybe you aren't quite to that 2 comma life, but you're on your way there, or you could still live the 2 comma life.
Absolutely. It kind of starts with, from our perspective, it kind of starts with sitting down really with a blank sheet of paper. And not everybody's good at this. You know, we find that, people have kind of unique God-given abilities, and some people are really good at the blank sheet of paper. Wow, what can I create? Other people are far more,
this is overwhelming. There's too many options.
Too many options. Just give me a checklist and I'll go down the checklist, right? But it's sometimes as we sit down with clients, we can help walk them through a process where they can kind of open up and see what is possible and what would we like to do. And as they do that, then we can create the checklist that helps them to say, okay, here's how we get there. And 2 comma life can start out as young as you want it to be, and with as little money or as much money as you have, by just starting with, what would we like life to look like? And what does success look like? So that now I can be intentional with my money instead of just haphazard with it. And sometimes people we have it in our house. I'm not, as we've talked before, I'm not the best at budgeting. And so I call it checkbook leakage, where all of a sudden it's like I'm spending money on stuff that isn't intentional. It's not driving towards the lifestyle that I want, not living my values. All of a sudden it's leaking out other places. And so sometimes you can live that 2 comma life even before your 2 comma by being intentional with where do we spend our money and that kind of stuff. So,
and it goes back to, it's the lifestyle. So what do you want that lifestyle to look like? It doesn't necessarily mean you have the 2 comma part, but you can still be living with intention to get to.
Absolutely. And a big part of that is, how do we get to, and there's whole strategies now. Once you're there, how do you deal with being a single digit millionaire? And what should I be thinking about? First, how do I get there? But then once I'm there, what are the things that I should be thinking about? And that's really where we specialize and kind of come in to say, there are different thought processes here now that we're in that space that we should be thinking about, whether it's estate planning or.
So what are some of those things that you should be thinking about?
Yeah. So even more so than if you're outside of that space, we really should think about diversification and think about it maybe a little bit differently than what we've thought about in the past. many times when people say diversification, they think I've got, well, I'll give you a little history lesson here. So 25 years ago when we started, if you said diversification to somebody that was retired, their idea of diversification was they had a CD in 8 different banks.
Yeah. Okay.
That was diversification for them, because they were coming out of a depression era kind of mindset. Don't put all of your eggs in one basket. As we say diversification today, investors become a little more sophisticated, and they start thinking about how much do I have in, say, mutual funds versus stocks, large caps versus small caps, that kind of stuff. But really, they need to start also thinking about diversification from a tax perspective. And how much of my money do I have in these tax deferred types of vehicles? So we talk about ESOPs, we talk about 401ks, and you start saying, well, how much am I deferring this tax versus how much should I have this, what we would call would be tax never, so you've got tax now, tax later, tax never. And you should have money in all of those buckets, which is much more significant once you cross over and become that single digit millionaire.
And maybe diversification, maybe this isn't what you're talking about, but also having like long-term care insurance.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Like it's not just retirement.
Yeah. Everybody likes to, no, for sure. Great point. Everybody likes to think about, like the fun part, how much money can I build and how, but that doesn't really mean a whole lot if you lose it all, because you didn't plan for kind of protecting it as well. And so you're right. It's the well-rounded financial plan that says I've got the asset side, but I also have the protection side as well.
So, we talk about people that maybe are living a 2-comma lifestyle, or should we say a single digit millionaire lifestyle that maybe aren't a single digit millionaire, or maybe aren't exactly there yet. So how do you get to be that single digit millionaire? Is it by not acting like you?
Well, yeah, it's funny you say that, because a lot of times, the number of times we have somebody that pulls up in a big fancy car, and comes in, you can almost say not it, right? Not always, but a lot of times you can say not it. But then somebody that comes up and they're driving the car that they've had for, 180,000 miles, and it's now 8 years old or whatever. It all goes back to making sure that I'm saving enough and investing enough before I go buy the big car, because that's what's going to get me there. And it's living within my means. It's making those smart decisions, not letting the checkbook leak too much, at least, that kind of stuff that really starts to build.
So waiting to be a baller until you're actually a baller.
Yeah. Well, and that's funny. So they call it the critical decade. And there's a ton of math behind, if you're in your 20s, the decade of your 20s, the decisions you make there will have a significant impact on whether or not you make that single digit millionaire place.
And that is so sad and scary, because how many 20-year-olds are
making those
right decisions? I mean, maybe like past 26, you start getting there, but
but really with that too,
or maybe that was just me, but
yeah. But it shouldn't be discouraging, because even past that point in time, it's what do they always say? The best time to start doing something was 10 years ago. The next best time is now.
Today.
Yeah. And so starting today, is the perfect time to get started and doing the right things to get yourself on track. But the funny thing to it all is, like we talked a couple minutes ago, the number of people that don't even think of themselves or realize how close they are, or that they're there to being that single digit millionaire.
Yeah, I think just like you said, you don't add it up in that way, or you think it's really just a mindset that you always think, it's that scarcity mindset. I need more, I need more, I need more. And not in a, greedy or hoardy way, but just like, oh, I'm so nervous about this that I feel like I need more. But if you take a step back and look, or sit down with somebody, it's like, you did make great decisions.
Yep.
You could be set up better than you think.
Yeah. Well, and that's what we see a lot of times too, is the people that are afraid almost of what the answer is. So they don't want to come in and talk. They're like, I don't know if I'm gonna have enough. I don't feel like I'm on the right track. I'm feeling scarce with my money. And really sometimes just having that conversation frees them up to live their life so much differently.
Well, how many people have you heard that from, that they said like, oh, I was up all night, nervous that you were going to tell me
I could
never retire, and then they feel like vulnerable because they feel like, oh, I should have made better choices. And he's going to judge that I didn't, or he's going to be, tell me that I made bad choices.
Oh, well, we make fun of everybody when they leave anyway, so don't worry about it.
Mostly just each other.
Just each other, yeah.
But I think that is totally, it can be an entry barrier to entry for a lot of people to come in to talk to a financial advisor or an accountant, or, they're nervous to tell you the decisions they've previously made or are currently making. But in reality, it's like, there's some levers we can still pull, or
100%. And to your point, the number of people that sit down and say, oh, I feel so much better now that we've gone through that. And it's funny, it doesn't really matter whether they are better or worse off than they thought. The fear is, and the fear is always worse than reality.
Yes.
Always.
Yes.
And so
holding it in is always worse than once you sit down and you say it out loud, it's like, oh, okay.
Oh, this is good.
Now we can make a game plan, and now we can make a checklist. And
yep. Absolutely. And so as we think about that stuff, and really, I think even for some of the people that are listening, if they're already there, some of the biggest things that we can help with are all around helping them to realize, I can live the 2 comma life. I can, the number of times we hear grandparents talking about how much they want to help their grandkids, or when I pass away, man, I'm going to leave a bunch of money to my kids. Why? Why, when you pass away?
Yeah. You're
in a position now where it doesn't have to be that way. We can start doing things today. And I'm not talking about give all your money away and go back to not being a 2 comma person or a single digit millionaire, but I am talking about ways that you can be significant with those gifts, and how you can truly help people in your life now.
And maybe it's not just writing a check. Maybe it's taking all your grandkids to Sky Zone and Odyssey Fun World every few weeks or months. Or
we've got I know that part of our audience today is a couple that kind of lived that. They've got a beautiful place. It's a lake house, and they chose in retirement to invest pretty heavily to redo the lake, build a whole new home, and now it's set up to where the entire family goes up. They all think about it. And so that is part of that. How do we live into that abundance and create the memories that we want to create? The ones that they had when they were little, of going up to the lake, and now they bring that to their grandchildren as well. And so there are ways to do it, and there are things that you can do that are pretty cool. But sometimes it really does take kind of unbundling the limitations that you've put on yourself, that you've carried with you for the last 30 to 50 years of working, that money is scarce, that I'm not going to have enough, and really free yourself to live that lifestyle.
Or maybe it's saying, hey, all my grandkids went to, this parochial school or the same school. It looks like that they could really use a new park.
Yep.
Maybe I donate and upgrade that for it doesn't have to, once you start thinking about what are my goals, you really do maybe have some options.
No, absolutely. Yeah. And so as you start thinking through some of those things, it really is recognizing, where am I at? What are the things that I'm wanting to accomplish? How do I want to accomplish them? And just where does all that go? That really does open up the conversation. And so if you're on and you want to type in some questions down in the Q&A, again, that's at the bottom of your screen. Pull that up. You can type in whatever questions you have, try to stump this chump. It doesn't have to be just about the single digit millionaire, or
maybe you want to ask me something.
Well, like Katie, your hair's looking
where do I get
nice.
My hair done? Or something like that.
Yeah. Like I didn't know you were going there.
I would love if somebody asked me
that. Shocker.
How did you know what I was going to say?
Yeah. Just like that I'm open to answering where the best beef sandwiches are from. Yeah. Well, and as we wrap up today, I think that one of the things that we'd like to also share is keep an eye out for upcoming changes to our podcast. If you're not familiar with our podcast, you can subscribe to it. How do they do that, Katie?
It's called the Retirement Readiness Podcast. You can look us up on YouTube. There's a big red subscribe button. We also post the episodes to Facebook, or if you listen to podcasts, you can find it on any platform, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. But like Tim said, we're kind of doing some major upgrading. So we're excited.
Well, and we might even have like a puppy appearance.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe we're thinking. But changing a little bit kind of the format of the show and the change our recording studio, all that kind of stuff.
So our backdrop will get a little bit more interesting besides
my bookshelf.
Have horning in on Tim's office every time we record. So
yeah. Well, and it's funny because whenever I'm sitting in an office, I always like to see like what books are on the shelf, and so I always wonder like, what is my bookshelf telling people about me?
Yeah, should we have evaluated what's out here?
Yeah, exactly. And I heard one time, somebody told me, oh, yeah, you've got a bunch of books up there you don't read. Well, I love to read. If people don't know that, I love to read. And but I heard one time somebody say that they write a book thinking that they want it to be self-help, not shelf help. But nonetheless, I've thought about, what are people thinking about my book choices and stuff.
You come to Tim for financial advice, but you could also come to him for a book recommendation. If you have like a problem or something you're trying to solve in your life, I guarantee you will have a book you should check out.
For sure. We'd like to read. So until next time, we hope we can help you live your legacy with confidence, help you to become a 2-comma lifestyle person.
Single digit millionaire, baby.
That's it. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Be well.